Good morning everyone, and thank you all for joining this webinar this morning. We're delighted to see so many people join us for this topic. It's been great to see such a positive response, and it's good to see some new faces as well as some older faces, or more familiar faces, shall I say. So I just want to introduce myself. So Lisa, if you want to share your slide, we'll just get started. Just while we're doing that, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping things this morning. The webinar will run for approximately an hour. We are recording this because we have had a few requests for people to share that once it's over, because they weren't able to join this morning, so just let you know about that. We are really keen for you all to ask questions. However, for that, what I'd like you to do is to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen. And add your questions in there, as we have asked you to stay on mute for this session, just to allow the speakers to manage to speak and present. So just want to introduce myself shortly. So my name is Beryl McCulloch. I'm the Senior Project Manager at Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. And we're delighted to welcome you all here. So I just wanted to firstly chat about the programme for this morning. So the webinar itself, as you'll all know, is the circular economy opportunity for the construction sector. And we're delighted to be joined by a number of our partners from Zero Waste Scotland, Clive, Bowman, from Insight Futures, Doug Morwood, and from Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, Jennifer Smart. And we've also built in some time for questions and discussions. So I'll host the session, and I'll moderate some questions. So as I say, please do use the chat function. We are really keen to hear from you. And we know that construction is a huge opportunity for everyone at the moment in the circular economy. So firstly, I just wanted to share a bit of context in terms of, you know, why we're doing what we're doing. And that's really because we have a vision to position Glasgow as a leading circular city. So Glasgow Chamber of Commerce has been working for a number of years in the circular economy to try and position Glasgow as a leading circular city. And we're delighted to be working in partnership in that with Zero Waste Scotland, our partners, through ERDF funding, alongside Glasgow City Council and other partners, including Circular Economy based in the Netherlands, Insight Futures, and people like Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. We've really been on a journey with the circular economy to try and position the city, you know, and it's already becoming recognised as that. And I think that construction for the city is a real opportunity to really sort of lend itself in a more innovative way. We've looked at a number of sectors so far to date, but construction is one that we're really keen to look as we go forward. I've mentioned this, but it's a real coalition of the willing in Glasgow. The Chamber of Commerce has very much been working in partnership and leading this, but it's a real collaboration. We couldn't do this without our partners, so we're delighted to have everyone and many people in the webinar this morning. As I said, we've been doing quite a lot of work with the construction sector and really starting that conversation, because there is a huge opportunity there for the sector. We held an event, as you can believe it, a couple of years back, and published a white paper report on this, and we've really started to kind of dig deeper into, you know, what is the opportunity for the city and how can we really start to move things forward. And I think that construction, as you'll hear more, you know, it's really starting to move towards more of a sort of circular mindset, particularly in light of some of the circumstances. I think that there's a real opportunity through the use of digital technology and innovation, which I know Jennifer will touch on, as well as some of the more sort of practical aspects in terms of how we design things for reconstruction, deconstruction, or actually design things for modularity. So the construction sector itself, I think, is really ripe for this. And we're really delighted to host this webinar this morning with our partners to really set out some of the opportunities for support, for practical implementation and for pilots, as well as actually some of the funding that actually is available out there for businesses who are interested in taking that first step. And I think for Circular Glasgow and the Chamber of Commerce, what we're really keen to do is to try and help businesses get in that first step. You know, we have been working with businesses across many sectors over the last few years. So whether that's food and drink, whether that's construction, whether that's actually events or manufacturing, it's very much about us trying to help businesses to educate them, inform them about what the circular economy is, which you'll hear more about, and actually how they can take practical steps. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce firstly Clive Bowman. Clive is a circular economy construction project manager at Zero Waste Scotland, and has a wealth of experience working with the construction sector to try and help businesses really take those first steps to implement some really innovative pilots and solutions for the construction sector. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Clive. He'll share some insights into what the circular economy is, as well as some of the support options available for you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So I've got a selection of slides. Hopefully Lisa will get them up in a second. But I'm one of 3 members of staff at Zero Waste Scotland within the Construction Industry Support Programme. You may be familiar with my colleague as well, Stephen Boyle, and my other colleague, Nick Ribbons. And we're all 3 of us, as well as lots of other people at Zero Waste Scotland, here to support the construction industry to adopt circular economy principles. And particularly my role is to support the business sector, the SMEs in particular, and provide a free advice and support service that we run throughout the whole of Scotland, trying to embed circular economy principles. So I haven't got long today, less than 10 minutes now, so it's going to really rattle through, but I'm just going to briefly start at the beginning. What is circular economy, how it then fits with the construction sector, and what it is that Zero Waste Scotland is able to do to support you. So next slide, please, Lisa. So the construction sector is big. We all know that. It's a very important sector. It accounts for about 10% of the economic activity within Scotland and employs around about 10% of the workforce. But it does have a disproportionate environmental impact. So some of the figures on this slide show that the sector is the biggest user of raw materials in Scotland, about 50%. It's the biggest producer of waste as well, around about 50%, and is also responsible for about 40% of carbon emissions. So it does have a big impact, and that's one of the reasons that we need to be starting to think about doing things in a different way. It's not all doom and gloom. We do have a good recycling rate, and I say recycling because, to be honest, most of it's downcycling, but we do have a good recycling rate already for the construction sector. So we have a lot of aggregates and soil being downcycled for fill, and we have a lot of wood and plastic being downcycled for heat recovery, for instance, or plate glass downcycled for aggregate. So we're making a start, but there's a lot of good progress we can make. The other good news is that we've had big shifts and progress in terms of building performance and operational carbon reduction, but we need to start thinking a little bit broader than that. Next slide, please, Lisa. So obviously, energy efficiency measures are really important to reduce operational carbon, but we also need to think about the embodied carbon footprint of a building. And this is all the carbon that's associated with the materials that we use. So it's the production, the manufacture of those products, getting those products to site, installing them a building, and how we deal with those materials at end of life. It also includes all the surplus materials that we have that are unused and discarded at the end. So we need to think about this embodied carbon. And if we combine the two, operational carbon and embodied carbon, we can think about the full carbon footprint. And then we can start to think about using less materials, using the right materials, and reducing the amount of waste that we generate. And that's really what we're starting to think about when we term the circular economy. Next slide, please, Lisa. So I like to think at the start when we think about circular economy as the waste hierarchy. It's a good way of identifying where we can look at decision making. So you'll be familiar with the mantra reduce, reuse, recycle. Well, we can apply this obviously to the built environment as well. And if we think about avoidance right at the very top of that pyramid, in terms of the utilization of the assets that we have, making sure that we're not necessarily building new buildings just for the sake of it, but we're retrofitting, and we're really looking at identifying the assets that we have and making sure that they last as long as possible, then that's really important. And then when we come down to the bottom of the pyramid, we're thinking about reducing the amount of disposal or reducing the amount of downcycling that we do. And on the side of this slide, you can see some of the policy and drivers towards that. So such as spatial planning policy, for instance, or digital technology can support us, or duty of care and landfill tax can discourage some of the downcycling. So the higher up the waste hierarchy we are, the more circular we are, and the lower down, the more linear we are. Next slide, please, Lisa. So if we apply this circular economy approach, then obviously we're going to use less materials, create less waste, but it is a win-win situation. And I think this is important to remember, that we also are going to create jobs within a green economy, and that's really important, particularly in the current situation where perhaps we're trying to reboost the economy post-COVID-19. We can also reduce capital and operational costs for the built assets that we have. We can increase supply chain resilience, which is really important. Again, just now, that's something that we need to look at. Economic stability can be improved. Obviously, carbon footprints, whole life carbon footprints can be reduced, but the wider impacts as well on social and environmental quality can be improved, and particularly around building quality. So big win-wins if we adopt a circular economy approach. Next slide, please, Lisa. I like to think of the circular economy in terms of 10 different principles. Now, I haven't got long today. I would normally spend a bit of time on this slide and go through each of these 10, but I'll let you read them while I ramble on. But basically, they are a set of principles. Each of them, some are easier to achieve than others, but each of them have their own aspect of circular economy and can be applied across the whole built environment at all stages, right from REBA stage 0, when you're looking at brief development, right through to end of life and in use, so stage 7, and potentially that mystical stage 8 that we don't have of end of life and deconstruction. I do have a document which has just been put on the Zero Waste Scotland website, which covers each of these 10 principles in a lot more detail and provides a growing list of resources that I'm putting together, such as guidance documents, tools, research documents, case studies for each of these 10. And I'll ask Lisa or Cheryl to send out a link to that at the end of this webinar, rather than go through each of these today. Next slide, please, Lisa. So Zero Waste Scotland provides advice and support to the industry. This is a free service that we're able to provide right across Scotland. We target, well, my role is particularly to target SMEs, but throughout my colleagues as well, Nick and Stephen, we're able to target and to provide advice throughout all industry sizes within Scotland. But particularly, we try and look at that specialist advice for 4 key principal themes. So we're looking to support clients and designers in early brief and early design stages. That's really important, where we think we can have maximum impact in terms of embedding circularity. We're looking to support clients, contract managers and QSs in sustainable procurement and whole life value assessments. We're wanting to support contract and site managers with site material management planning, all aspects of material management. And we're wanting to support designers, asset managers, facility managers and contractors with digital technology solutions. So if you as a contractor are interested in any of those 4 themes, or as a client or as an architect, then please come to us and we can look at supporting you in terms of advice. We also run a program of events throughout the year. Obviously, that's taken a little bit of a hit at the minute and we're having to evolve, but a program of webinars is being developed for the next coming months, despite COVID-19, and we're always looking for partner organizations to join in with. So very pleased to be doing this today with Circular Glasgow. We also try and support the industry in terms of best practice examples, case studies and guidance. So we're constantly looking at where the gaps in that information are. We're spending a lot of time this year looking particularly at embodied carbon. That's an area that we feel as though the industry needs support on, how they can assess the embodied carbon at different stages of the project, particularly the upfront stages of design and brief development, so they can make important decisions about the materials and the designs that they're going to have and the impact it will have on that carbon footprint, all working towards that net zero carbon 2045 target. We already have a range of tools and guides on the website, and like I say, I'm putting together this bigger list of resources, which I said I'd send that link to you. And we're always looking to work with partnership organisations, such as a Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and you'll hear from Jen in a minute about that. But it's important that we have a consistent approach across the sector, and we have a consistent message, and that's something that we do that through close working with different partners. Next slide, please, Lisa. So some of the work that we have done over the past year, I'll just give you a very brief summary of some examples of that. So our activity has ranged from running interactive workshops, and Doug has been involved in some of these and he might touch on them, but with supply chain for projects such as Balfour Beatty in Aberdeenshire, or with industry collaborations such as SMEs on Skye, we're able to bring these together and start to discuss early aspects of how they can embed circularity into their activities. We've provided specialist advice regarding materials and products, such as for kitchen work surfaces at Grampian Housing Association, or vehicle matting options for landscape contractor called Water Gems in Edinburgh. We've provided early design advice and support for architects and clients such as PS Wellness, who are looking to develop a new health fitness building, and GLM, who are an architect practice in Edinburgh, who work on retrofit of historic buildings. And we've also provided digital technology advice and solutions for a number of different organizations, designers such as BIM and different drawing technologies, and civil engineering contractors as well, such as NRS, that looked at asset management and database technologies. So a wide range of different supports there under those 4 categories that I talked about earlier. And final slide, please, Lisa. So please get in touch if you would like to know more about the circular economy approach that we're promoting through Zero Waste Scotland. Again, we're always looking for collaboration and building relationships with the sector. And if you wish to receive any of this free specialist support that I've been talking about, then get in touch directly with me. Again, hopefully my email, well, it's on this slide now, but it'll go out at the end of this webinar as well. And I'm always happy to have that early conversation to see what we can do in terms of working together. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass you back.
That's great. Thank you, Clive. That was really helpful and really insightful. I'd now like to take this opportunity to welcome Doug Morwood. Doug is he's the Chief Executive of Insight Futures, and Doug works alongside the Circular Glasgow team to help support the Circular Glasgow team and provide some expertise in the construction sector. Doug has a vast level of experience in working with the construction sector itself, and he'll be able to share some of his insights into what the circular economy opportunity really means for the construction sector itself. So I'll pass over to Doug just now.
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, so maybe not vast experience, but I always think that as soon as you call yourself an expert, then you've stopped learning. So yeah, I'm still continuing to learn, but I do think that I've got a bit of an insight being a former civil engineering contractor for 15 years and knowing what it feels like to get labour, plant, material on site at the right time in the right quantity to produce against programme on site and on budget, against all sorts of vagaries of Scottish weather. And also deal with being in the supply chain and working with main contractors and clients and all that sort of thing. So I actually got out of the industry a while ago because I'm so fed up with it. And its adversarial nature, its lack of productivity, its inefficiency, it's low margins, it's hugely creative, talented people finding a way to kind of not work together very well. So it's changed quite a bit in that. It's lots of digital innovations and all sorts of breakthroughs that have occurred since I actually left as a contractor. But I've re-emerged into the industry in the last 5 or so years, really inspired by these same creative, talented people trying to work out how they can do things differently. And I think that the industry is notoriously slow to change, but I think that we obviously realise that we're ripe for change. And I think that if you've ever seen Stephen Good present his slides, he asked that question, and most of the audience always answer that we're ripe for change. Now, that was something that people were exploring in lots of different ways. There's lots of different innovations around digitalisation, around BIM, around circularity, around decarbonisation. But unfortunately, if you go on to the next slide, Cheryl, we've been hit with this pandemic. And I talk, when I do any talks around the VUCA world, a 1990s military term, which means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous context. We're in this world, and I think this is the first time I've experienced, and I think we've all experienced, a global pause. We have all stopped. The financial crash affected some parts of the industries and countries and sectors and economies, but a lot of things still continued. I think all of us were talking before we came on with everybody joining about how we're feeling a bit kind of captured and contained, obviously working from home. But equally, I think a lot of us have had a time to reflect and to understand, what is it we're about? What is work? Going to be something we continue going to the same place, and are we going to continue working from home? We've embraced or had to get onto Zoom or whatever other platform you use, and virtual engagements and all sorts of things. NHS has moved in a few months into a position that has taken they've been trying to do for 20 years. So as much as this is a horrible threat, and I can talk about opportunity threat in a second, we've had to become adjust ourselves to think differently, to do things differently, to change our behaviours. And is this an opportunity, as much as we're currently feeling a bit trapped in the economic threat and the health threat that we're still facing, we've not yet got through. But has this provided an opportunity, if you move to the next slide, Cheryl, to think differently and to do differently? And I think that we all have to look at, yes, we need to survive and be resilient as we come through this, but are we going to go back to business as usual? Do we have an opportunity to think differently and maybe do differently? But not just individually as our own organisation, but collectively and collaboratively to try and look at our construction system and say, what, is it fit for purpose? Could it be improved? What can we leave behind and what could we start differently? Carry on, Cheryl. I think it's up to ourselves to think about this current crisis that we're in. And obviously, there's so many things that are out with our control. But what can we take control of? How can we relate to our colleagues and start thinking about recombining our assets and resources within our own organisations, our own part of the supply chain or value network, and then collaborate in a different way to try and move out of this into a more optimised, less wasteful, more productive, higher margin construction industry and process. And how does circularity allow us to do that? Or what does circular innovation provide as an opportunity to do that? And I think that this macro event, this global event that's out with our control, doesn't mean to say that we can't be innovative and start thinking differently about how we can emerge. And I think it's up to each of us to take responsibility for that. Carry on, Cheryl. Dr. Michael Ryan, the Executive Director of World Health Organization, this quote came out right at the start of the pandemic. I'll read it out just very quickly. Be fast, have no regrets, you must be the first mover. First of all, it's not business as usual. If you still think it is, that's a fatal mistake and you have a lot of catching up to do. Once we're through this pandemic, and if we ever do, there needs to be a functioning economy to rebuild. If I was asked to give one piece of advice based on what I've seen, It is that you need to adapt and do it rapidly. If you need to be right before you move, you'll never win. Speed trumps perfection. And I think that's true. I think, you know, it's important to think, how can I do something? What am I in control of? How can I help digitize my business? What opportunity has this provided? Whereas I've got now a lot of workers either furloughed or working from home. And how can I start using that digitalization thrust that I've had to maybe even go further to create digital workflows upstream and downstream in my supply chain? Move on to the next slide. But if we say waiting for something else, then I think that we're losing the opportunity to innovate out of here. I think we need to have a dual innovation approach. Obviously, there's an awful lot of, there's a huge challenge in the industry to even just survive. There's going to be an attrition, there's going to be a lot of the supply chain is going to fall foul of this current stop. We have to find a safe way of returning to work. Obviously, it's not consistent in terms of on the political level with England, you know, moving back onto site, and in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, we're staying at home. And we need to have a consistency around that. We've had some confusing messages around safe operating procedures from the industry. So you know, this isn't helpful. But what we need to be looking at is, while we're, you know, static, how can we be resilient around saving our core? And that's all about obviously making use of the government support in whatever way we can. And most of you have probably managed your contraction in some way as an organisation to do that. It is really looking at workflow innovation, protecting your workforce, digitalisation, working from home. And again, most of the organisations that are represented in the call will have done that. But then how can you look at reshaping your core? How can you look at supply chain management? What is the opportunity where we've had a globalised supply chain, where we can look at more local supply chain and develop that? What's the ways you can start interacting in a different way, where you can bring your business model together with others to offer a more virtual connected, integrated value network? And how does digitalization help do that? Not just from a BIM point of view, but from connecting as a value stream that can provide a more integrated solution provision to the clients and the end users and the main contractors if you're working through them. And how can you do different types of value propositions to your market? And how does circularity and some of the things that Clive has mentioned, I'm going to build on what Clive has talked about. You know, how can you look at new value propositions, business model opportunities, where if you're looking at things like modern methods of construction, near site factories, controlled environments where instead of being on site, you can do more modular design and maybe get access to a controlled environment where you can have 2-meter distancing and social distancing, and you have a controlled environment where you can start looking at modular design and things like that. The idea that you're going to have a resilient core, obviously, that allows you then to look at new business model opportunities. And how does circularity provide that? Move on to the next slide, please, Cheryl. So there are a number of barriers to circularity. Obviously, the status quo in the business as usual is very invested in itself and hugely resistant to change. And I think that my work that I've been doing for the last number of years in trying to introduce circular design thinking into the construction industry has met a number of barriers, but equally there's a number of enabling conditions. One of the barriers I see is this chicken the egg challenge. If you move on, click on. If we have to get to really trigger and catalyse a greater uptake in the construction industry to circular design and implementation, then it needs to be asked for. We need to have it in our ITTs or PQQs. And I think the public sector has a huge opportunity with city projects, university projects, big infrastructure projects, to have that written in to their procurement. So in order to catalyse the readiness, move on to the next, it'll click in, industry readiness. Now, the industry isn't becoming ready to deliver circular implementation or circular innovation because it's not being asked for. And it's not being asked for because the industry isn't ready. A chicken the egg kind of challenge. So I think what we need is to be looking more collaboratively on a project basis. And that's what we've been doing with the client, the main contractor, and the supply chain to get early engagement so we can have that design at stage 0, almost in the REBA plan of works, from the supply chain, who have great specialist knowledge, who are usually kept at bay from the main contractor and especially from the client, to have that opportunity to come in early so that the circularity can be designed in from the start, not just to stage 7, but actually to design for disassembly as well, because that changes the design intent. So this opportunity that I think exists just now is possibly a more receptive awareness of that collective design input, to look at designing out waste, to look at servitization, to look at modern methods of construction, to look at reuse, refurbishment, extension of life of products and materials that are used in the construction industry. Because if you think about it too, this has been a huge shock to the system, and it's been unexpected. But we know that climate change is a challenge, and that we've got 10 years to get to keep below a certain temperature and emission levels. And yet we're not acting as if we really think it's an immediate threat. And that's because we're human beings. It's like asking my son to save for his pension, and he's only 21 and third year at uni. Dad, I just want to party. It's too far away still. Whereas the mobilization we've had to this immediate crisis from the pandemic is obvious. And that's unfortunately how we're probably going to react to the climate emergency. But I do think there's systemic opportunities for public sector procurement to start asking and putting that in their PQQs and ITTs and requests for tenders, so that the industry can then mobilise in a collective way. In Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, this happened quite successfully. When the construction industry was kind of asked to become more circular, it said, well, we're not being rewarded for that. In fact, it's the cheapest price still. And I think we still have that situation in the UK. But what happened was the Ministry of Industry in the Netherlands said, right, okay, we will look more, and Nitesh, who's on the call, will have his direct experience of this, formerly of BAM, where they did start collaborating much more and rewarding circular innovation to get to that more trusted position where the industry was realizing that it would be rewarded by exploring circular innovation. Next slide, please, Gerald. We use 7 layers as an opportunity to kind of break down the complexity of how does a contractor look at this build program or build project, and try and break it down into a manageable conceptual area, so they can see where can they apply their innovation, their circular innovation. So very quickly, there's a system that surrounds the site. There's the skin, the structure, services, space and stuff, and each of these have an opportunity for you to look at and say, right, okay, can we have localized support to this instead of stuff being coming in from China or whatever? What's in their system where the site is placed? Is there supportive planning, building control? Is there is there a local suppliers that will be able to support the site in a particular way? In terms of the site, what that proximity or that location, what does that allow us to think of in terms of energy, materials, supply chain, all that sort of thing? And so when you look at this and say, right, if we're going to look at the structure, is it steel? Is it going to be a timber frame? Are we going to be able to change the materiality of it? Are we going to put a digital layer on this so we can have predictive maintenance? Is the facade going to be, again, what's the opportunities to think about circularity from that side of things? And how can we integrate with a supply chain who can come together with their various work packages and integrate as a whole, looking at a particular project? So we've used this to kind of break down the project in these layered ways, so that supply chain, the main contractor and the client, can work out how that can be optimized with circular innovation from a design and build position, but also into the use phase. Most clients, when it goes to the handover and post-occupancy evaluation of a contract, the scoring is very low, and there's a whole lot of cost that is not covered in the use phase, because everybody's focusing at the design and build phase. And I think that with soft landings and capex to opex kind of considerations, we need to be looking at the whole life cost, and not just from a capital budget point of view, but from a carbon budget point of view as well. And circularity is an enabler to designing out waste and reducing that carbon footprint as well, not just at the design and build phase, the use phase, but also end of life. Next slide, please. Some of these, again, Clive's gone through it already, but just to recap, and I'm just conscious of time, it is a design challenge. I think your circular inputs, if you look at the circle at the top left corner, if we can get the design right, and if the right people are involved at that early design stage, then you don't miss the opportunities. Later on, it's very hard to input or implement circular innovation if it hasn't been considered at that early stage. So it's very important for people, the right people, and not just at the engineering or the consulting to the client stage, but the supply chain gets that early engagement and that early input to look right through to end of life. So that you can look at what circular sourcing, you can look at modern methods of construction in terms of construction becoming a manufacturing process. You know, your logistics and ensuring that you're making sure that that's close and that you're looking at the carbon aspects around that, and that you're designing for durability. You're designing to service in situ, which gives opportunities for new value propositions for companies who are selling a product just now, who may be saying, right, let's change to selling a service, build a platform, get access to data, generate new revenue streams, move away from the low margin. There's all sorts of economic opportunities that circularity provides. And I think it's just a resourceful way to be, and actually circular business models should be the default design, logical design approach, instead of this linear, let's design in waste, let's design, you know, for things to be broken down quickly and to, you know, to be thrown away essentially. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, the typical value chain, I think, can be quite easily and logically, conceptually identified. The trick is the huge challenge is moving from the current state to an alternative future state. And to do that, we need to work collaboratively. And we need to have, I suppose, a different way of contracting. And there's certain other products out there, integrated project insurance, which can change the cultural dynamic of how we work together as an industry. It can't be that for me to win, you have to lose. It has to be that we can be in it together, we can design together, we can look at the value exchanges that can allow for a built environment to become more adaptive, more circular, and actually the end users and the people that are using the built environment are going to be able to have a non-toxic, adaptive space over time that's not just providing yields today, but long-term yields going forward. And that can be a change of use as we go forward as well. Next slide. So is circular innovation an opportunity? Is it a secondary thing to the current challenge that we've got just now? I really do think that we have to be resilient, we have to be resourceful. There are huge opportunities of support, as Clive has mentioned, and through Circular Glasgow, through Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and through Zero Scotland and others, to reward any organisation that is interested in exploring circular opportunities. Here in Scotland, there's a huge opportunity, a huge experimental backyard with lots going on. So last slide. I'll just finish by saying it's an invitation to anybody who's on the call or people who aren't on the call that you know, who would like to know more or like to find out more. I'm all about practical implementation. I think we need to take action. We've done an awful lot of talking, and I'm known for talking a lot, but I do believe that we can actually, by trying something, speed trumps perfection. We'll learn an awful lot by trying and failing in a coordinated and managed way. But by having that insight, we'll be able to make changes as we go forward. So please get in touch with Circular Glasgow or with Zero Scotland directly, or Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and we'll signpost you to the right people, and we'll look forward to exploring circular innovation and practical implementation with you. Thank you very much.
That's great, Doug. Thank you very much for that. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Smart, who's the Lead Innovation Manager at Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. And Jen will talk through some of the opportunities that Construction Scotland Innovation Centre has, and some of the sort of support that's there, as well as the ICON initiative that they've just launched. So I'll hand over to Jen.
Go right. Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Does everybody hear me okay? Perfect.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. It's nice to be here virtually. So my name's Jennifer Smart, as Cheryl has kindly introduced. I'm one of the lead innovation managers at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. I've got a cheeky wee 5 minutes at the end, so please bear with me. I am really just here to kind of highlight the support that's available to the industry from CSIC in a general sense, but also to highlight what we're doing in response to the current COVID-19 pandemic to get the industry back on its feet. Lisa, can you move the slides forward? So just a quick overview for those who are not familiar with CSIC. We're part of the Innovation Centre family. There's 7 innovation centres, and you might know some other of our sister centres such as Census, Data Lab and iBioIC. We're all funded the same way through Scottish Funding Council, Scottish Enterprise and Highlands and Islands Enterprise. So ourselves, we've been ongoing since 2014, so this is our 6th year now of supporting the construction and built environment sector to make true transformational and scalable change. So we work across 4 thematic areas: building sustainably, digital transformation, off-site and culture. All the conversations that we're having today around about circularity fits front and centre within the building sustainably theme, alongside other things like healthy buildings, low carbon, sustainable materials, waste reduction, active buildings. I can go on and on. Digital transformation, that's all about big data, IoT, virtual reality, geospatial. Off-site, it's quite self-explanatory, but mass customization, robotics, automation, things like that. And culture change, so all about people and productivity, diversity, leadership, and the image of the construction industry. So the support that we provide across those thematic areas is also can be delivered in 4 kind of very convenient, so it's 4 and 4 ways. So our connected ecosystem activity is all our stimulation activities. We run events, workshops, hackathons, matchmaking events that educate, disseminate and connect the industry. We do this on our own, but we also do it like today with partners, both public sector and industry partners. We have a whole collaborative innovation projects and funding programme. So we have up to around about £200,000 per project. For that kind of money, it would obviously have to be truly transformational, but that money allows us to pay academics to work with industry partners to really drive huge change within the Scottish construction sector. We have our innovation factory. I haven't seen it in a long time. I hope it's still there. 34,000 square foot, which is the UK's first dedicated digital manufacturing, prototyping and future skills centre of excellence. So pretty much all of our kit in there supports the sustainability agenda. A lot of it is off-site related, and that goes hand in hand with the reduction of waste. And then a lot of our kit, or some of our kit, such as the thermobonding line and the stone maker that we have there, can utilise waste material to manufacture new products for the construction industry. And we have our future workforce themes. So really that is all about our skills and young person engagement programme that helps support the workforce of the future. Next slide, please, Lisa. So we were merrily delivering all of that work and being very busy and being very happy, and then coronavirus happened to not only our industry but to all industries and across the globe. So, you know, as we are all aware, it has had a massive effect on the construction and built environment sector, both for individuals and for organisations, and people are unsure about how to move forward. Can you click the button, Lisa, please? So what we've been doing in the background at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre is to try and deliver something that will help in this time of crisis. So we've come up with our ICON initiative, which is effectively a platform to help the industry use the skills and the resources that we have at the CSIC and with our partners to help get through this difficult time. Can you click on, Lisa? Thanks. So ICON is basically, you know, it's easy to access. It's on our website. It's front and centre. If you go to csic.org, then you can get into that no bother. It's 3 parts. We have an online learning platform, which is just a bank of online training and skills resources that can be undertaken remotely. That's not just our stuff, it's from our partners as well. We have a knowledge hub, which is a bank of resources and information to support the built environment community during this crisis. And we have our matchmaking platform and challenge fund, which has been created to assist the built environment sector face the major challenges caused by COVID-19. And how it works is we effectively connect challenge holders, people saying, I've got an issue, and solution providers, so people saying, I've got a solution. And what we do is, with this platform, connects them together. We can apply funding and hopefully come up with very close to market ready solutions. So the best way to probably explain that is to run a very quick video. So Lisa, over to you. Perfect, Lisa, thank you. Can you click on to the next slide? Oh, thank you. Thought we were going to have to watch it again there for a second. So just as an overview, that video was just quite quick. So, you know, it's pretty simple. Get on there, get registered, detail any challenges that you might have, detail any solutions that you feel that your business can offer other people in the industry at the moment. Once you've done that, the platform will allow you to connect with other companies on there, and you know, you might need nothing more than that than just to be connected. But once you connect, and if you feel that you want to apply for some funding, there is up to £25,000 available for academic expertise to be paid for to come and work on your project. So please get in touch if you would like to know more about that, the specific icon on platform. So Lisa, could you click on to the next slide there, please? Thank you. I am aware that this was obviously quite a general overview of the support that we can provide both through CSIC and through ICON, but it's absolutely relevant to today's discussion, as Doug was mentioning in his slides. You know, it's not just about helping get our industry restarted after COVID-19, but it is about what comes next. It is about the sort of a green and a sustainable recovery. If you could click the button again, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you. There has been a number of articles you probably have read that all in the media about green recovery and the opportunity to transition to a low carbon economy. As well as all the statistics that are showing the positive effects environmentally that the lockdown has had on the world. So you absolutely want to recover the economy, but we want to do this in the best, most environmentally sound way possible. So building in a sustainable way is also a huge opportunity for businesses to grow, a real opportunity. So we are absolutely open to all solutions that can support any post-pandemic recovery, and that whether that is in the short, the medium or the long term. So, you know, I really would urge anybody that's on the webinar to get in touch, to go and have a look at our website. As I'm sure that my email will be passed around with the slides at the end, so please get in touch with myself if you want to discuss either ICON or what the CSIC can do to support you. We would absolutely be delighted to speak to you. So thank you very much for staying with me there. And back to Cheryl.
Thank you, Jen, for that, and thank you to all of our speakers this morning sharing some of their insights, and it's been great. I've just been having a look at the chat function just now, and there's been some real conversation going on between everyone, which is great to see. I suppose one of the questions I was keen to bring out was a question from Connie Young, which sort of ties in with something that Scott Brewster's posted. So Connie's asked around selling the benefits of the circular economy to clients, and Scott's spoken about the statement of intents or circular economy statements as part of any planning applications. So in terms of how we can sell the benefits into clients to adopt circular principles, and then therefore how we can then ensure they're held to account. So that's built in at the planning stage. I just wanted to ask that to, I suppose, to all actually, to see your insights in terms of how we can really, I suppose, sell that and really hold people to account.
Shall I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, you know, in terms of impact, we really need to be focusing on clients and the key decision makers that, you know, certainly in terms of circularity, we're much better looking at the front end of our whole built environment and how it's constructed. So we've done a lot of work, Zero Waste Scotland, and I'm sure other organisations have supported the current National Planning Framework consultation process. And if we can start to get some policies and legislation in place that will support clients, because that's the big problem at the minute. A lot of this is voluntary. A client at the minute has to consider their own situation. A lot of that, particularly with COVID-19, is around costs. I know we try and get the message across that being circular is not necessarily going to cost more. It potentially can up front, not always, but potentially can. There could be investment in digital technologies. There could be investment in new ways of working. What we're keen to get across is actually whole life cost is going to be much lower, and the quality of the build and the whole life value of the built assets is really important. And that's where we can then work with public sector, work with facility managers, social housing, university campuses, all these organizations that potentially think whole life, because they're not about just making fast bucks. And if we can get some good examples of how it's working with these clients, supported by a new national planning framework, I think we're definitely on the right road.
Great, thank you. And Doug, I think you've got an interesting example to share that you've sort of shared in the chat box, but if you'd like to tell us a bit more about that. Are you there, Doug?
I couldn't unmute myself for some reason. Yeah, sorry. I do think it should come from the client first, and I think that procurement will catalyse and accelerate the adoption of circular design principles that then will lead to a decarbonised kind of built environment. In the new build side of things, we also have a big job to go back and retrofit existing estate, but that's for another day, where we're going to see the bigger drop in carbon. We decided to become the client because we couldn't find clients who were able to adopt fully in their tenders circular principles. And so at Kelvinside Academy, when we had an opportunity to build an extension, we could have gone out to a tier 2 and gone through the usual processes and tried to see if they could respond. But I decided that we should bring in the biggest construction industry company in the UK, Balfour Beatty, and ask them if they wanted to be a collaborative partner to explore and fundamentally adopt circular principles as much as we could in the project. We brought them on and we went through a series of workshops with them, our design partners, our architect, our M&E design partners, this whole supply chain, through a number of 22 different workshops, lots of different ways we could explore it. Unfortunately, the project was brought forward a year, so we lost a year's lead into it, but we decided, you know what, it's better to do something and it not be perfect than just say, okay, we'll try it in another contract. So we didn't get as many circular outputs embedded in the building, but probably were more successful in catalysing a change of thinking in certainly Balfour Beatty, and I know there's a few people from Balfour Beatty on the call, and in the broader supply chain. And we managed to actually move in a series of workshops over just a couple of weeks, one element which was to servitise the HVAC for the building, which was, it sounds easy, but it was actually very complicated because you had to get multi-stakeholders to come together. And to look at what the various value exchanges were, what the barriers to shifting from a product, selling something as a product, to then keeping it on your balance sheet and servitizing that or servicing it going forward. But the wider impact on Balfour Beatty was they adopted the circular tracker approach that we took, and they have informed their own business operating model for Hinckley, Heathrow, which is in the abeyance just now, Highways England, and another I can't remember just now, HS2, where they've taken what we did in this small project and actually embedded it in their wider business operating model. So that was a major breakthrough. Subsequent to that, we've also done work, as Clive mentioned, where we've had the client in the room with the main contractor, looking at how we can explore circular opportunities on a live project. We've then gone out to the supply chain and had them explore different work packages through the 7 layers and get their input from and access to the main contractor and the client in a way so that we can have a collaborative exploration of live projects going forward. And that has been really significant in terms of just creating a safe environment for people to explore alternative options and to be rewarded for showing that initiative. So that's a process that we're continuing. It's live at the moment. It's been obviously stopped because of COVID, but that will be the mechanism we'll be using to go forward. And it's been hugely successful, and people having a voice and an input to be able to design not just for that project to be done, design and built, and then they're off to the next one, but to look at the whole life cost and to even to the end of life, which has been hugely significant in forming clients' views on their own assets.
Great, thanks for that. Jen, do you have anything you want to add to that one?
Is she on mute?
Shit.
I am, but actually that's okay because I don't have anything to add.
No problem. Well, I'm conscious of time. I'm aware there's a few questions that have probably been answered through the chat function, but we'll just have a check through and make sure that they have been. And if we haven't got to them, we'll certainly share them around the contributors and come back to people with the questions. So I suppose on that note, I'd just like to give my thanks once again to all of the speakers for contributing, for everyone for asking questions and being engaged. And really just want to, I suppose, put a bit of a call to action out to everyone. What can your business be doing? Here at Circular Glasgow, as I said at the start, we really very much want to try and be, I suppose, a bit of a starting point for everyone. Come and talk to us. If you might have an idea, but you're not really sure. If you don't, you just want to find out more, have a chat with us, and we can certainly try and help scope out and identify some areas, and then hopefully then be able to sort of plug you into Zero Waste Scotland, to Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and to Doug as well. How can we help you? Equally, we'll make sure that we share across all the information that Clive and Jen and Doug have shared, just to make sure that you can connect with them directly. But we really want this opportunity to be for you all to look at, what can you do differently? How can we start to think differently? What are the opportunities? So I suppose that would be my call to action is, what can you all do differently?